Lil Durk's legal situation just got a major shakeup. By bringing in Brian Steele as his new lawyer, he's made a move that could finally get him back home. Steele, one of hip-hop's most high-profile defense attorneys, is now leading the charge, and fans are speculating that this could completely change the outcome of Durk's federal case. Let's break down what Brian Steele has done so far, why this matters, and how it might be the key to getting Lil Durk released. On March 8, 2026, a filing hit the United States District Court for the Central District of California. Documents filed that day show attorney Brian Steele has been substituted in as counsel of record, replacing Jonathan M. Brayman of Breen and Pugh. That is the paperwork that got the internet buzzing. Brian Steele has officially submitted paperwork to replace one of the attorneys currently representing Lil Durk. Now, let us be clear about what this means in practical terms. According to various sources, Steele has officially filed paperwork to become one of Durk's lawyers. Steele is not an additional body. Instead, he is replacing another attorney. He is swapping out one seat at the defense table for another, but the person sitting in that seat changes everything about how this case could play out. Steele is an Atlanta-based attorney best known for representing Young Thug during the YSL RICO case in Atlanta, and he also joined Sean Diddy Combs' legal team in April 2025 for his federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial. He is not licensed to practice in California. Steele filed a Pro Hack Vice application on March 8th, a formal request allowing out-of-state attorneys to practice in a specific case. Christy O'Connor of the law office of Christy O'Connor in Los Angeles is designated as local counsel. So what does Durk's defense team look like now? If the application is approved, Steele will join a high-profile team. That includes decorated attorney Drew Findling, who has celebrity clients, including Cardi B, Gucci Mane, and Donald Trump. Steele will join a high-profile team that includes decorated attorney Drew Findling. You have two lawyers who have been in the middle of some of the most watched legal battles in recent history, now working together for one client. As one can imagine, Durk is looking to put together the best legal team possible. Drew Findling is already on his team, which speaks volumes to the kind of fight that Durk is preparing. Findling is known for the cases he has won and is not shy about discussing his victories with the media. While Findling is certainly a strong start, it appears as though Durk is trying to strengthen his defense. And that makes sense, because this case is not small. The rapper has been behind bars since he was arrested in October 2024. That is over a year in federal custody. The clock is ticking. The timing of this move matters too. Steele's request to join the defense team arrives shortly after a federal judge postponed the trial. The court pushed the proceedings to August 20, 2026, after rejecting motions from several co-defendants who sought separate trials. The court concluded that the charges stem from the same alleged conspiracy and should proceed jointly, so the delay gave Durk's team time to reconfigure. The trial has been pushed back multiple times. It was originally supposed to start in January 2025. Then it moved to October 2025, then January 2026, then April 2026, now August 2026. Every delay has been driven by co-defendants needing more time, not by Durk himself. Banks has not joined any of the continuance requests and has not waived his speedy trial rights. But because all defendants are being tried together, every delay applies to him as well. That is the situation. Durk has been sitting in a cell for over a year while his trial keeps getting pushed. And now, with months before the next scheduled date, he has made the decision to bring in one of the most talked about defense lawyers in the country. But who is Brian Steele, and why does this matter so much? Let us get into that. Brian Steele is not new to this. Brian Steele, born in 1965, is an American attorney, best known for representing rapper Jeffrey Young Thug Williams in the YSL racketeering trial. Steele served as the lead defense attorney for Williams in what would become the longest trial in the history of the state of Georgia, lasting over 22 months. Let that sit. 22 months. That is the trial that put Steele on the map in the eyes of the general public, but he had already been working for decades before that moment. Steele founded his own law firm in 1997 alongside his wife Colette, who is also an attorney. He is Georgia's most successful criminal appellate attorney, with around 300 published opinions and 45 reversals to his credit. 300 published opinions and 45 reversals. Those are not numbers you see from someone who just showed up. That is a career of work. Although he has spent the last few years practicing in Georgia, Steele grew up in Queens, New York. He contemplated a career on Wall Street before his career as an attorney. Steele completed an undergraduate business degree at the University of Michigan. However, he changed the trajectory of his career after a visit to the stock exchange trading floor. He initially planned to become a tax attorney, but life had other plans for him. Steele went to Fordham University School of Law in Manhattan. He ended up in criminal defense, and he ended up in Atlanta. And that is where his story intersects with hip-hop in a way that no one could have predicted. The entry on the Billboard list reads, Steele, a well-known Atlanta criminal defense attorney who had previously represented 21 Savage, is serving as lead counsel for Young Thug in the ongoing trial. Before Young Thug, before Diddy, Steele was already working in hip-hop cases. He represented 21 Savage. In addition to his work with Young Thug, Steele has represented a range of clients, including former Glenn County District Attorney Jackie Johnson, who was indicted for her handling of the Ahmaud Arbery case. But what happened during the Young Thug trial is what gave Steele a reputation that transcended the courtroom and entered the culture. The YSL RICO case was a monster. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis brought sweeping charges against Young Thug and members of his YSL camp, alleging that YSL was not just a record label but a criminal street gang. Steele fought that. He fought it for almost 2 years in a courtroom. And then came the moment that turned everything. Back in June 2024, Steele was held in contempt and sentenced to 20 days in jail, following an argument with Judge Ural Glanville, who was eventually recused from the trial. The fracas erupted when Steele told the court that he'd learned about an alleged private ex parte meeting between a key state witness, prosecutors, and the judge. Steele, at one point, even appeared to allege that the witness may have been coerced or intimidated ahead of his testimony. Think about that. A defense attorney told a judge, in open court, that the judge had met privately with prosecutors and a witness. That is a serious accusation, and when the judge demanded to know how Steele got that information, Steele refused to say. Rather than deny the meeting took place, Judge Glanville demanded to know how Steele had learned about it. When he refused to name names, the judge issued an ultimatum. A second later, Steele calmly responded, "I don't need 5 minutes." He was taken into custody, held in contempt, sentenced to 20 days. But here's what happened next. The Georgia Supreme Court later reversed the contempt ruling, citing due process violations and affirming Steele's right to protect privileged information. The court said the judge should have recused himself from the contempt proceeding because he was directly involved in the dispute. Steele was vindicated, and on July 15, 2024, Glanville was removed from the case. He was replaced by Superior Court Judge Paige Whitaker. Brian Steele has almost become a household name in hip-hop circles. After his defense of Young Thug in the YSL RICO trial, Thug was facing decades in prison after being charged with RICO, gang activity, drug and gun charges, but was able to make a plea deal mid-trial and avoided additional jail time. Young Thug walked free after over 2.5 years behind bars, and the man who fought for him every step of the way was Brian Steele. The culture took notice. In February 2025, Canadian musicians Party Next Door and Drake's collaborative album featured a song titled Brian Steele, named after Steele. Drake literally named a song after a lawyer. That tells you where Steele sits in the culture right now. And then in April 2025, Brian Steele was hired as a member of Sean Diddy Combs' legal team for his then upcoming federal criminal trial on sex trafficking charges. Steele went from defending Young Thug in a state RICO case to defending Diddy in a federal case. And now he is stepping into Durk's federal case. In a recent appearance, Steele addressed the government's conviction rate. Following the trial, Steele said that Thug was a hero for showing the criminal justice system is corrupt. In an appearance on Killer Mike's Conversate podcast, Mike brought up the federal government's 94-95% conviction rate, and Steele replied, "Not with us. Not with us." That is the man Lil Durk just brought onto his team. The question now is, what exactly is he up against? To understand why this lawyer change matters, you need to understand the case. Because this is not a state case, this is federal. And federal charges carry a different kind of weight. In October 2024, Lil Durk was arrested near Miami International Airport on a federal charge of murder for hire. The Chicago-born Grammy winner and drill rap pioneer is alleged to have conspired to kill a rival rapper as retaliation for the 2020 killing of King Von, a member of Durk's Only the Family collective. According to the federal criminal complaint filed in the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California, Durk put out a bounty on the life of Quando Rondo in 2022. The planned hit was not successful, though it did result in the fatal shooting of Xavier Robinson, Rondo's cousin. Let us go back to where this started. On November 6, 2020, at around 2:15 a.m., King Von and his crew were involved in an altercation with Quando Rondo's crew outside of the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta, Georgia. The dispute escalated into gunfire, and Von was shot multiple times. He was transported to a hospital in critical condition and died there later that day. He was 26 years old. King Von, whose real name was David Bennett, was signed to Durk's Only the Family label. He was one of Durk's closest friends and collaborators. An altercation broke out between the crews of rappers King Von and Quando Rondo outside an Atlanta nightclub. Quando and his entourage claimed that they were acting in self-defense, and Von was the aggressor. The attorney for Timothy Lul Tim Leaks confirmed his client's murder charge was dismissed in 2023. The man accused of actually pulling the trigger on King Von had his murder charge dismissed. That is a detail that matters. Now, what the FBI alleges happened next is the core of the case against Durk. The FBI now alleges that following Von's death, Lil Durk put out a bounty for anyone who would kill Quando Rondo in retaliation. The indictment alleges that after King Von's slaying, a co-conspirator not named in the indictment offered money and lucrative music opportunities with OTF to anyone who took part in killing Quando Rondo. On August 19, 2022, the alleged hit went down. 3 gunmen tracked Quando Rondo across Los Angeles before opening fire at a gas station near the Beverly Center. Quando Rondo's family member, identified in court documents as Lul Pub, was shot and killed. Quando Rondo survived. Prosecutors allege co-defendants Keith Jones and David Brian Lindsay were among the shooters, and that one of the weapons used had been modified into a fully automatic machine gun. The logistics of the alleged plot, according to prosecutors, involved credit cards, plane tickets, rental cars, ski masks, and coordination across state lines. They say that the hitmen allegedly used credit cards linked to OTF and Lil Durk to book one-way flights from Chicago to San Diego on August 18, 2022, as well as a hotel room at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, California. Grant, who flew in a private jet from Miami to Los Angeles, is accused of providing firearms, one that was modified to operate as a fully automatic machine gun, to Jones, Lindsay, and an unnamed co-conspirator. Grant also provided 2 cars, which the group used to find, track, and kill Quando Rondo, the indictment alleges. Following the shooting, the defendants and the co-conspirator went to a hamburger restaurant where they discussed payment. On the same day as the shooting, an unnamed co-conspirator used an OTF-associated credit card to purchase plane tickets for Wilson Jones, Lindsay, and Houston to travel back to Chicago. The charges are as follows. The second superseding indictment charges him with 4 crimes: conspiracy, use of interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death, stalking resulting in death, and use, carry, and discharge of firearms and machine gun in furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death. He has been charged with conspiracy to use interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death. He has pleaded not guilty. And then there is how Durk was arrested. Lil Durk booked 3 international flights in an alleged attempt to flee the country following the murder for hire arrests of 5 people associated with his group, Only the Family. According to the indictment, records show law enforcement personnel arrested the 32-year-old upon his arrival at a Miami area airport. According to FBI documents, the rapper reserved 2 separate one-way commercial flights to Dubai and Switzerland, both of which he ultimately did not board. A third attempt involved a private jet scheduled to depart for Italy, but FBI agents detained him just an hour before the flight was set to take off. That is the case. That is what Brian Steele is walking into. And it is not going to be a simple one. Before Brian Steele entered the picture, Durk's legal team had already been fighting, and the results so far have been mixed. One of the first things Drew Findling tried to do was get the case dismissed. Lil Durk's legal team had hoped to get his murder for hire case dismissed over death threats that prosecutors reportedly failed to disclose. The argument from the defense was that threats had been made against a judge and a prosecutor handling the case, and that this information had been concealed. Judge Fitzgerald denied the defense's motion to dismiss over the prosecution's reported failure to disclose death threats against a bail hearings judge. Defense lawyers asked for either an evidentiary hearing on their allegations or for the removal of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles prosecutors in the case. They alleged a concealment of 4 threatening voicemails to U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue in February and 1 threatening voicemail to Assistant U.S. Attorney Ian Ianniello in April. According to defense attorneys, this represented an alleged effort to hide information for the purposes of avoiding bail. The judge did not buy it, but the judge in this case disagreed. There is just absolutely no basis for this motion. Just none. Absolutely none, Judge Fitzgerald reportedly remarked. That motion failed. Then there was the bail situation. Durk has been denied bail multiple times. A federal judge in Los Angeles said rapper Durk Banks must stay in jail as he awaits trial. U.S. Magistrate Judge Patricia Donahue cited a report that Banks violated phone rules by engaging in 3-way calls and using phone accounts belonging to at least 13 other inmates. Defense lawyer Drew Findling said he's heard only positive things about Banks's behavior in jail. The judge referenced his behavior with phones in custody and his attempted flight before arrest as reasons to keep him detained. She also referenced Banks attempting to leave the United States before he was arrested last year. The flight risk argument has been a problem for Durk's team from the start, and it is not hard to see why. He booked 3 international flights the day his associates were arrested. That is a fact that is hard to explain away. Then there is the lyrics issue. This is a fight that has been going on for months. Durk's lawyer, Drew Findling, requested that the judge not allow the use of the rapper's lyrics and music videos as evidence in court. However, the prosecutors consider such evidence relevant to the case and Durk's alleged association with the death of Rondo's cousin. The government wants to use Durk's music against him. They want lyrics, music videos, and social media posts to paint a picture for the jury. And the result of that fight was not a clean win for either side. The judge eventually allowed the use of 4 of the 13 submitted lyrics and denied 5 others. The other 4 would also be allowed if the government can adequately explain their probative value in the context of how they will be presented and admitted at trial. Some of Durk's statements in an interview with DJ Academics and comments on his X account are also permitted to be used in court. This evidence is reportedly set to prove that Durk was pressured to avenge King Von's death. There is also the matter of the government's own witness. The defense has been chipping away at the prosecution's case in other areas too. In a court filing, Banks's defense argued that a man identified as prosecution witness 1 initially asserted there was no bounty at all, that he did not agree to murder Bowman for money, in that he did so under duress. They claimed the man later changed his story. The defense argued prosecutors must have realized the man lied because their first superseding indictment alleged that Wilson agreed to distribute the alleged bounty, while their second superseding indictment deleted that claim. And there is this. The defense also chipped away at the government's case when they previously produced evidence showing that Banks's 2022 song, Wonderful Wayne and Jackie Boy, was recorded months before the shooting. The government wanted to use that song as evidence of the shooting, but the defense showed it was recorded before the shooting even happened. These are the wins and losses so far. The motion to dismiss failed. Bail was denied. Some lyrics were allowed, some were blocked. A key witness may have credibility issues. And a song the government wanted to use as evidence may not hold up. Now Steele is coming in at a time when the defense has already laid some groundwork, but also taken some hits. The question is what Steele brings to the table that can shift this. And looking at his track record, there are some clues. So here is where we get to the core question. Can Brian Steele actually change the trajectory of Lil Durk's case? Let us look at what Steele does. He goes to war. That is what his track record shows. In the Young Thug case, Steele famously represented Young Thug in his long-winded racketeering trial, ultimately getting the Atlanta rapper released after 2.5 years behind bars. Steele showed a lot of dedication to Thug throughout the trial, and was even jailed for refusing to reveal his sources. He did not flinch when a judge threatened him with jail. He did not back down when the judge demanded he reveal privileged information. He stood his ground, went to jail for it, and then won on appeal. That kind of tenacity is exactly what a federal murder-for-hire case demands. Steele is not a lawyer who takes plea deals easily. He fights. And he fights in the courtroom in a way that rattles the other side. But let us also be honest about the differences here. The Young Thug case was a state RICO case in Georgia. Durk's case is a federal murder-for-hire case in California. Federal cases carry a conviction rate that Steele himself acknowledged on Killer Mike's podcast is around 94 to 95%. Federal prosecutors have more resources, more tools, and a track record that makes defense attorneys nervous. The evidence in this case is also extensive. The continuances have been driven by Banks's co-defendants, who cited the case's complexity, and a discovery load that includes hundreds of gigabytes of digital evidence and more than 30,000 pages of documents. Hundreds of gigabytes, 30,000 pages. That is a mountain of evidence to work through. And the nature of the charges is different from what Steele handled with Young Thug. With Thug, the state was trying to prove that YSL was a criminal enterprise, a gang. The defense could argue it was just a record label. With Durk, the government is alleging a specific act. They are saying he paid people to go kill someone, and someone died as a result. That is direct. That is targeted. And the evidence trail allegedly includes credit card records, flight records, text messages, surveillance footage, and witness testimony. But here is what Steele may bring to this case that could make a difference. First, his reputation. Juries know when a lawyer is the real deal. Steele walks into a courtroom and people pay attention. He has a presence that can shift the energy in a room. Second, Steele is aggressive with procedural challenges. He challenged a sitting judge during the Young Thug trial and got that judge removed from the case. If there are any procedural issues in Durk's case, any missteps by prosecutors, any questionable rulings, Steele is the kind of lawyer who will find them and push them. Third, the witness credibility issue. We already know that the defense has raised questions about the government's key witness. The defense argued that a man identified as prosecution witness 1 initially asserted there was no bounty at all. A witness who changes their story is vulnerable on cross-examination, Steele is known for cross-examinations that expose inconsistencies. If this witness takes the stand, Steele could dismantle their credibility. Fourth, the lyrics evidence. The indictment also includes lyrics from a Banks song the government says explicitly referenced the killing, including audio from a news clip captured immediately after Lil Pub's death. Steele dealt with lyrics being used as evidence in the Young Thug trial. The YSL Rico case was one of the most prominent examples of rap lyrics being weaponized in court. Steele has experience arguing that lyrics are artistic expression, not confessions. He knows how to frame that argument for a jury. Now, does any of this guarantee Durk comes home? No. Federal cases are won by prosecutors far more often than they are lost. The evidence trail in this case appears to be extensive. Credit cards, flights, text messages, surveillance, a shooting, a death, and witnesses. That is a lot. But what Brian Steele brings is fight. He brings tenacity. He brings a track record that says he does not accept the government's narrative without testing every piece of it. And he brings an understanding of hip-hop cases that very few lawyers in the country have. Steele has said he gets very close to his clients. He meets their families. Because if he is going to defend somebody, he has to be invested. He has to believe in the person. He has to make it where if he loses the case, it is going to ruin his life. That is the kind of commitment he is bringing to Durk's case. Steele and Findling will be forming a super team of sorts. This could have major implications for how this case plays out and whether or not Durk can come away unscathed. This is a case that everyone will be paying attention to. Durk's trial is set for August 20th, 2026. The trial is expected to last several weeks once it begins. Between now and then, Steele will have to get up to speed on hundreds of gigabytes of evidence and 30,000 pages of documents. He will have to coordinate with Drew Findling, who has been on this case from the beginning. He will need to prepare for a joint trial with multiple co-defendants, any one of whom could say something that hurts Durk's case. Durk has denied the accusations against him. He has maintained his innocence from the start. His father told reporters outside the courthouse Banks is still smiling and staying strong. The title of this video says, Lil Durk back home after new lawyer changes everything. We do not know yet if Brian Steele will change everything. What we know is that Steele has changed outcomes before. He did it for Young Thug when most people thought Young Thug was going to spend decades behind bars. He pushed back against a system that had a 94% conviction rate and said, quote, not with us. Whether he can do it again in a different state in a different court against a federal government that has spent years building this case is the question that will play out over the next several months. But if there is one thing that is clear, it is that Durk is not going down without the fight of his life. And the man he has chosen to lead that fight is the same man who went to jail for his client, got his contempt thrown out, got the judge removed, and brought Young Thug home. August 20th, 2026, that is the date. The world will be watching.